It was one of those Fridays where you could practically taste the weekend. After a grueling 10-hour day at the construction firm, all I wanted was a relaxing night with friends. We hadn't hung out in months, and everyone had been hyping up this dinner for a week. I went all out, surf and turf, desserts, imported wine, the kind of spread that makes you feel like life's finally paying you back for working overtime. My order totaled just over $500, which, honestly, felt worth every penny for a peaceful night. The restaurant confirmed everything around 7 p.m. The delivery app pinged. "Your order is on the way." Perfect. My buddies were already on their way, and the house smelled like freshly cleaned floors and candles. I was starving, pacing around the living room like a kid waiting for Santa. At 7:32 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Delivery completed. Nice. I hurried to the door. Nothing. No bags, no boxes, no smell of food. Just the soft chirp of crickets and an empty porch. At first, I thought maybe the driver mixed up the address. I refreshed the app. Nope. The photo confirmation clearly showed my porch, my welcome mat, my doormat gnome, everything. I looked around. Still nothing. That's when I heard my neighbor Dave calling out across the yard. "Hey, Alex, that was your delivery, right? Karen just walked off with it." I blinked. "What?" Dave pointed toward the cul-de-sac where Karen, my HOA-obsessed neighbor, was marching home, her arms full of brown paper bags. You know the type. Mid-50s, blonde bob, floral robe, and a permanent scowl that could curdle milk. She was the self-declared guardian of the neighborhood, the one who'd once left a note on my windshield saying my car wasn't HOA color approved. But stealing food? That was a new level. I stormed down my driveway. "Hey, Karen!" She didn't even turn around, just kept walking, clutching those bags like treasure. I followed her to her front porch. "Karen, that's my dinner!" She finally turned, pretending to be shocked. "Oh, Alex, this? No. This is an HOA matter. I intercepted it because deliveries like this aren't allowed past 7 p.m. Too much traffic for our community." I stood there speechless for a second, trying to process the insanity. "You intercepted it?" She nodded proudly. "Yes, as HOA property monitor, I have authority to enforce neighborhood order. And this much food? That's a disruption." Behind her, through the crack of her front door, I saw my bags, all of them, sitting on her kitchen counter, steam still rising from the containers. "Karen," I said slowly, trying to stay calm, "that's a $500 order. You can't just take it." She shrugged. "Then you shouldn't have ordered that much. Besides, I'm saving the neighborhood from attracting pests, or worse, outsiders." I clenched my fists. "You mean delivery drivers? You think they're pests?" She sighed, like I was the problem. "Look, I'll keep it for now. You can appeal through the HOA board next week." Appeal? She was acting like she'd confiscated contraband, not steak, shrimp, and a dozen desserts I'd paid for. That's when I noticed something. She had sauce on her chin. She'd already started eating my food. My patience snapped. "Karen, that's theft." She laughed. "Oh, please, don't be dramatic, Alex. It's just food. HOA rules override personal property in community disputes." That was it. I pulled out my phone, opened the delivery app, and showed her the photo. "See that? My porch. My delivery. You're in possession of stolen property." Her smugness flickered for the first time. "Oh, stop it. You wouldn't dare call the police over some food." I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm. "Karen, I don't think you realize something. This wasn't a $20 pizza. It was a $500 order, which means you just committed grand larceny." She blinked, confused. "Grand what?" "Grand larceny," I repeated. "You know, a felony." Her face turned pale, but she quickly tried to recover. "You wouldn't," I cut her off. "Try me." I turned and walked away, her voice trailing behind me. "You'll regret this. HOA rules are on my side." Back inside, I could feel my blood boiling. My friends were arriving any minute, and now I had no food, no dinner, and an HOA Karen who thought she was the neighborhood sheriff. I took a deep breath, sat down, and opened my laptop. Time to collect proof. The delivery confirmation, the timestamp, the photo, and Dave's witness statement, because I already knew he'd seen everything. What Karen didn't realize was that her little food rescue mission had just turned into a felony case. The night had gone from Friday feast to crime scene investigation in under an hour. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, surrounded by plates that were supposed to be filled with food, now replaced by evidence files. My friends had texted, "Bro, are we still on for dinner?" "We're hungry, man," I replied. "Dinner's canceled, but you're gonna want to hear this story." I started uploading everything, the receipt, the order ID, even screenshots from the delivery app. The GPS map clearly showed the driver stopping at my address, taking a proof of delivery photo, and leaving. Then came the text from the delivery company. "Our driver confirmed drop-off at your location. Please contact local authorities if the order was taken." That was my green light. But I wanted to give the HOA one last chance to handle their own members' insanity. Maybe, deep down, I thought they'd surprise me and do the right thing. So I emailed the board with the subject line, "Urgent. HOA member, Karen M., stole $500 delivery. Proof attached." 5 minutes later, I got a reply from the HOA president himself, a guy named Harold, who acted like every email was a Supreme Court ruling. "Dear Mr. Alex, the HOA supports all members who enforce community standards in good faith. Large deliveries after sunset may be deemed suspicious. Please refrain from making false accusations toward other residents." False accusations? My jaw dropped. So now, they were backing her. The woman who literally stole dinner off my porch and was probably still chewing it. That's when I realized the HOA wasn't going to help. They never helped. They only protected their own. So, I took a deep breath and did what I should have done an hour ago. I picked up the phone and called the police. 911, what's your emergency?" "Hi, I'd like to report a theft," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "My neighbor stole a $517 food delivery from my porch. I have photo proof and witnesses." There was a short pause, then the dispatcher asked, "Did you say over $500? "Yes." "That qualifies as grand larceny, sir. We'll send an officer to your address to take a report." I hung up, heart pounding. It suddenly felt surreal, like a neighborhood squabble had just turned into a court case. 20 minutes later, red and blue lights flashed across my driveway. 2 officers stepped out, calm and professional. "Evening," one of them said. "You're the one who reported the theft?" I nodded and handed over my printed receipt and screenshots. They looked through everything, nodding slowly. "You said a neighbor took it?" "Yeah," I pointed toward Karen's house. "She said the HOA gave her permission to intercept deliveries over $100. She literally said she was saving the neighborhood." The second officer raised an eyebrow. "Did you see her take it?" "No, but my neighbor across the street did. He watched her walk off with the bags. And when I confronted her, the food was in her kitchen." They exchanged a look, the kind cops give when they've already decided who's guilty. "All right, sir," one said. "We'll have a word with her." I watched from my window as they walked over. Karen opened the door halfway, still in her robe, still chewing. I could hear her voice even from my house. "Yes, officers? Is there a problem?" "Ma'am, we received a report that you took a food delivery belonging to your neighbor," one of the officers said calmly. Karen scoffed. "Oh, this again. That delivery was a violation of HOA policy. It was left unattended. I took custody for community safety." One officer blinked. "You took custody?" "Yes, it's for everyone's benefit." "Ma'am," the officer replied evenly, "we're not talking about community property. This was a private delivery, over $500 worth." Karen crossed her arms. "He shouldn't have ordered that much. It attracts outsiders." At that, the officer sighed. "Ma'am, that's not how the law works." She must have seen me watching because she turned toward my window and shouted, "Are you serious right now, Alex? You called the cops over food?" I opened the window. No, Karen. I called them over theft. The officer turned back to her. Ma'am, the value of this delivery qualifies as grand larceny. That's a felony. Karen blinked, visibly confused. Felony? For dinner? That can't be right. Oh, it's right, the officer said, jotting something down on his pad. And eating it doesn't make it yours. Her confidence started cracking. I'll return it then. It's already been consumed, the other officer said dryly. Returning it doesn't undo the theft. At that point, her voice went from defiant to desperate. Come on, I didn't mean to steal it. It's not like I broke into his house. That's true, said the officer. But you did take possession of property that wasn't yours, and the law's pretty clear on that. They gave her a few moments to collect herself, then asked her to come down to the station to make a statement. As they led her to the cruiser, she turned toward me one last time. This is insane. The HOA will hear about this. I smirked. Yeah, tell them to bring dessert next time. When the car door shut, Dave came walking up, hands in his pockets. Bro, he said, shaking his head. I can't believe you actually called the cops. Neither can she, I replied, grinning. He laughed. You just turned HOA Karen into a true crime episode. And honestly, that felt pretty good. Saturday morning hit different. Usually my weekends were quiet, coffee, music, and maybe tinkering with my old pickup truck. But today, every neighbor on the block was glued to their windows like it was a free reality show. Because overnight, HOA Karen had officially gone from neighborhood watchdog to local legend for all the wrong reasons. The police cruiser had parked in front of her house half the night. By morning, half the community already knew what happened. I was halfway through my coffee when my phone buzzed, a text from my buddy Dave across the street. Bro, Karen's out front, and she looks like a shaken soda can. I peeked out the blinds. Sure enough, there she was, pacing her driveway, clutching her phone and muttering loud enough for the squirrels to leave. She's calling the HOA again, I mumbled to myself. Not even 5 minutes later, Harold, the self-proclaimed HOA emperor, strutted into the scene like he was about to solve world peace. He had his clipboard, his cheap sunglasses, and the same smug confidence that made him insufferable during board meetings. Karen rushed up to him, hands flailing. They arrested me, Harold, over a delivery. You need to fix this. Harold sighed, already irritated. Karen, calm down. I told you to let the HOA handle disputes. I was handling it. I was preventing suspicious food drops. How was I supposed to know it was over $500? Who even eats that much sushi? Doesn't matter, he said flatly. The police said it's grand larceny. That's not something we can override. Karen froze. What do you mean we can't override it? You're the HOA president. He rubbed his forehead. I'm not the mayor, Karen. The conversation was getting too good to miss. I stepped outside, pretending to water my lawn. Dave wandered over with his coffee, matching my energy. You think she's still hungry? He joked. I smirked. Maybe she can order prison food next time. Karen spotted us immediately and stormed toward my driveway. Oh, you think this is funny? She yelled, fingers stabbing the air. You humiliated me in front of the entire neighborhood. I put down the hose. You humiliated yourself when you stole dinner and called it community protection. That food was abandoned. It was on my porch. It could have attracted stray animals. It did. You. Dave spit out his coffee, laughing. Karen's face turned beet red. You're going to regret this. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Oh, I think I do, I said calmly. You're the woman who turned grand theft into a neighborhood hobby. Right then, another police cruiser pulled up. Lights off, engine idling. The same officers from last night stepped out. Karen immediately changed her tone. Officers, thank goodness you're here. This man's been harassing me ever since last night. One of the cops sighed. Ma'am, we're not here for him. We're here for you. Her eyes widened. What? Why? Your delivery theft report was reviewed by the county attorney, he said, holding up a paper. They've decided to proceed with formal charges. Karen gasped. Charges? But I said I'd return it. Returning stolen property after eating it doesn't count as restitution, ma'am, she stammered. This is harassment. You can't arrest me again. I'm on the HOA board. The officer nodded slowly. Then I guess the HOA board will have to elect a new member. Dave whispered, Oh, that's cold. I tried to keep a straight face, but my lips twitched. Karen's meltdown reached its peak. She threw her hands in the air, ranting about conspiracies. You're all in this together. The HOA, the delivery company, the police. Everyone's against me because I care about community standards. Ma'am, said the officer, community standards don't include grand theft sushi. Even Harold, the HOA president, stepped back, clearly done defending her. Karen, maybe it's time to stop talking. Stop talking, she barked. You were supposed to protect me. Protect you from yourself? Impossible. The neighbors started gathering. Lawn chairs, phones out, the full suburban audience. You could hear whispers. She really called the cops again? That's the sushi thief. My HOA dues better not cover her bail. Karen's voice cracked. You can't do this. I'm an HOA officer. The officer gave her a sympathetic look. You were an HOA officer. They placed her in the back of the cruiser again. She shouted through the window. This neighborhood's going to fall apart without me. I waved. We'll take that risk. As the police drove away, Harold stood awkwardly in the middle of the street, clipboard in hand. So, this will probably affect the HOA's reputation, he muttered. Dave raised an eyebrow. Oh, I think your reputation's just fine. You're the president who defended a food thief. Harold sighed, looked at me and said, Alex, for what it's worth, we'll be reviewing our community policies. Start with the one that lets random people steal dinner, I said, heading back inside. That evening, I finally ordered food again, from the same restaurant. This time, when the delivery guy arrived, he looked nervous. Sir, are you sure it's safe to leave it here? I smiled. Oh, it's safe now. The neighborhood's finally Karen-free. He laughed, dropped off the bags, and said, Man, I heard about that lady on Facebook. You're kind of famous now. I shrugged. Guess it's my 15 minutes. I took the food inside, sat down, and raised a toast to peace and hot sushi, both freshly restored. 2 weeks later, my quiet neighborhood buzzed again. Not because of an HOA meeting, not because of another Karen meltdown, but because the sushi scandal, as everyone started calling it, was about to reach its grand finale, Karen's court hearing. Everyone had heard the gossip. She'd been officially charged with grand larceny and false report to authorities. The HOA tried to distance themselves faster than a cat from a bathtub. Harold even sent out an official email saying, The HOA board does not condone or support any individual's personal misconduct. Translation: You're on your own, Karen. I wasn't planning to attend the hearing at first, but then a subpoena showed up in my mailbox. Apparently, as the victim of the stolen property, I had to testify. Great. I never thought I'd be in court over raw fish. That morning, I walked into the county courthouse wearing my best jacket, not to impress anyone, but to avoid looking like I'd come straight from mowing the lawn. Inside, Karen was already seated, tapping her foot furiously. She wore oversized sunglasses like a celebrity trying to dodge paparazzi, and she refused to look in my direction. Her lawyer, a tired-looking man who clearly regretted his career choices, whispered something to her. She hissed back so loudly everyone heard. I'm innocent. This is all HOA business. The judge, a stern woman with zero patience, entered the courtroom. Court is now in session for the case of State versus Karen Dawson. Let's proceed. The prosecutor, a young woman with sharp eyes and even sharper notes, started calmly. Your Honor, this case involves theft exceeding $500. The defendant, Ms. Dawson, unlawfully took possession of food deliveries belonging to the plaintiff under the false claim that she was enforcing HOA policy. Karen interrupted immediately. I was protecting the neighborhood. The judge raised a hand. Ms. Dawson, you'll have your turn to speak. Interrupt again and I'll hold you in contempt. Karen crossed her arms and glared at me like I was the villain. The prosecutor called me to the stand. When I took the oath and sat down, the courtroom felt smaller than my living room. Mr. Taylor, the prosecutor began, can you explain how the incident occurred? I nodded. I ordered food for my guests, around $550 worth, mostly sushi platters. The driver confirmed delivery to my porch at 7:38 p.m. Minutes later, the food was gone. And what did you discover afterward? Through my camera footage, I saw Ms. Dawson, the defendant, taking the food and loading it into her car. The prosecutor smiled slightly. Thank you. Now, did Ms. Dawson ever attempt to return the food? I couldn't help but laugh. She tried to return the empty boxes. A few chuckles rippled through the courtroom. Even the judge smirked before regaining composure. Karen's lawyer tried to recover. Mr. Taylor, isn't it true that my client was acting in good faith, believing the food was suspicious? I replied, if good faith means eating half the evidence before reporting it, then sure. The courtroom burst out laughing this time. The judge banged her gavel lightly, fighting a grin. Then came Karen's turn to testify. She walked up confidently, as if she was about to win an Oscar. Your Honor, she began dramatically, I've lived in that community for 15 years. I've been a model citizen, upholding the HOA's values and ensuring order. That evening, I noticed a strange delivery. I feared it might contain illegal substances or contraband. The judge raised an eyebrow. Sushi? Karen blinked. It could have been disguised. The prosecutor asked, so you confiscated it and consumed it? I inspected it thoroughly, she snapped. The prosecutor smirked. With chopsticks? The courtroom erupted again. The judge had to bang her gavel twice. Karen's voice cracked. I was just doing my duty. I shouldn't be punished for caring about safety. The prosecutor calmly handed over her final piece of evidence. A printed delivery receipt showing Karen's signature when she accepted the food from the driver after falsely claiming it was hers. The judge leaned back. Ms. Dawson, this is clear misuse of authority, if not outright theft. The HOA has no jurisdiction over private deliveries. Karen tried one last desperate move. Your Honor, I'm being targeted. This is a neighborhood conspiracy. The judge sighed. Ms. Dawson, the only conspiracy here is your theory of how sushi became a felony. After 20 minutes of deliberation, the verdict was announced. On the charge of grand larceny, the court finds the defendant guilty. Karen's jaw dropped. You can't do this. I'm HOA. I am the rules. The judge didn't even flinch. And now you're on probation for 12 months, community service included. The bailiff handed her the paperwork. Karen muttered, This is ridiculous. I'll appeal this. HOA justice will prevail. I whispered to myself, Yeah, good luck getting sushi in community service. Outside the courthouse, reporters and locals had gathered. Yes, it had become that viral. One reporter asked me, Mr. Taylor, any comment about today's verdict? I smiled. All I'll say is, never steal something you can't afford to replace, especially from a guy with cameras. Dave texted me later. Heard the sushi bandit finally got served. Justice, that is. That night, I finally had dinner in peace. No drama, no HOA spies, no stolen food. Just quiet satisfaction and the knowledge that for once the good guy actually won. The next morning, Harold sent another HOA-wide email. Effective immediately, Karen Dawson is no longer part of the HOA board. Please direct all community concerns to me. Someone replied, all with, Can we finally get sushi at the next HOA event? The entire neighborhood laughed for days.